Yeah, like a little circle thing. Okay, so I'm going to disable the player for now. Let's just do a little bit more with like the basics of state machines before we move on to anything more complicated. We have about an hour and a half left. That should be enough to go over some simple animation stuff and color changing of cubes. Okay, where is the thing I need? Cool. So what I think I want to do is set up something so that when we click the mouse button, we're going to change the color of a cube. Okay? I think that seems like a reasonable thing. So it's pretty simple, but it's kind of just more of a different way to interact with the environment. You guys have been able to move a player around in a level. I just want to do something more with the mouse. Once we get this thing with the mouse, we can get something. I'm thinking about this more. It's probably going to take a little bit longer. Let's just do a treasure chest opening. I think that's a little bit more interesting. So with a blank level here, I want to first set up a treasure chest that opens when I click the mouse button. And then second, we're going to make a character that moves around. And when they get in front of the treasure chest, that's when you can hit a button and the treasure chest will open. Okay? Like it's a very common mechanic. Walk up to a chest, press a button, and the thing opens. So it's going to combine what we just did, which is moving a character around, which I'll make sure that you're on top of it too, with an object that you can basically interact with. Okay? I'm going to show you guys how to do interactive objects in your levels. Because sometimes you want something that the player has to like push a button, like on a computer panel, or like pull a lever, or like step on a switch, or maybe open a door, or whatever it is that they need to interact with. You want them to be standing in a specific location to do that. Okay? So let's start off with the treasure chest. And we'll just have it so the treasure chest plays an animation of opening. Make sure that you have a folder called Objects in your assets. And you should see this thing that's called a treasure chest anim. So if you're in the one column view, it's under Objects, and you see this treasure chest anim. It's the only one that actually has a material applied to it. You guys should all see this, right? Drag and drop this into your level, somewhere where you can see it. And kind of move the camera. Move the camera so it can see the front of the treasure chest, because that's where it's going to open. And then if we have time, I'm going to show you how to do pickups, like a coin pickup and health pickups. They're all pretty much the same idea. It all revolves around the concept of using triggers to control behavior. As I mentioned last week, triggers are like the bread and butter of game development. Like it's just used everywhere. Shit, like every game that you've ever played has some form of triggers. Triggers? It's more like. Well, it's that controls it, but triggers are they're more used because they are the way that you interact with the environment. It's the way the player, like the little dude that runs around, connects with the level that you just made, right? Without triggers, there's no way for you to interact with things. So that's why they're so important, because you use them for everything. Triggers are used for pickups. Triggers are used for interacting with things, interacting with doors, or interacting with like a button or a lever, or hitting the exit of the level. Or you hit a trigger to cause a wave of enemies to spawn. That's super common. That's like the basic way you do enemy spawns. I don't know. But it's localized, right? It's like a collision detection only in like one spot, right? You can attach triggers to like moving things too. Like we're going to use triggers attached to a bullet to detect whether you hit something or not. Really simple and easy to do in Unity. So, but first we're going to figure out how to play an animation, just because it's something neat. It's a little bit different. It's not too difficult. Okay? Cool. All right, so here's a treasure chest anim. And if I play the game after I pressed and I put this thing in, notice that it actually plays the little opening animation. Everyone should see it playing this opening animation by default. I'm going to change this from like being pure black to something that's a little bit. That's you, Kai. Holy cow. All right. You don't sneeze as loud as one of my office mates, though. So there's a treasure chest. So animations in Unity are controlled by exporting out animations from Maya. For now, though, we're just going to use this existing animation component. I want you guys to uncheck the play automatically checkbox, because by default, we don't want this chest to open when we hit play. So make sure you click on your object and don't have it play automatically. We're going to open it by hand, all right? Right. Okay, so as you can guess, we're going to add an FSM component to our chest. All right, so go ahead and add an FSM component. And the first thing I want to do is when I press a button, either a mouse button or a keyboard button, I want to play an animation of the chest opening. All right, let's hook it up to an actual GUI button, though. I think that sounds like a good way to do it. Let's have a button on screen that you click to open the treasure chest. All right, kind of like what we did last week. So go ahead and add an FSM. Go to edit this thing, and we're going to start off step by step. We have one state here. I'm going to rename this state. What state is the treasure chest in right now? It's closed. Okay, so let's rename it closed. That's the first thing that's going to be in, all right? So I want to show a button that you can click when it's closed. All right, do you guys remember how to add a button here? You go to the action browser. Once you search for GUI button, cool. So add a GUI button and change the text to be something like open chest. And I'm just going to resize this a little bit here. You guys remember how to do this, the resizing and changing this stuff? It's kind of rare that you have a game that pops up a button that you interact with a mouse button, but like you can imagine that buttons will be used for inventory or shops or whatever it is that you need to do in your game. So here's my button. I want to have a state that the chest goes into when I want it to open, okay? So right now I have this button, so when I want to click on it, I want it to go to a different state. So I'm going to add a new state here. What are we have a closed state, so what is the obvious other state? Open, right? So we're going to add an open state. And I want it to go to this open state when I click the button. Do you guys remember those, right? So GUI button has an event. I want to add a transition to go from closed to open, okay? I want to right-click on this and add a transition. These transitions are populated from your Events tab here. So go ahead, go to your Events list, and add a new one. This is going to be called like clicked button. I'm going to slow down for a second and make sure everyone's on the same page. You have the button showing? You have an action? Cool. And then you want to add an event? Add a custom event. So go here, yeah, and add a new one. And I called this one clicked button. Do you want me to like zoom this thing at all? I feel like it's like super tiny all the time.
No, I can
swear. You can. Everyone just crowd around my screen and then run back to your desk and do this thing. This thing is like super tiny.
It's got a yellowish tinge to it.
Yeah, what is up with this? You guys are all facing like the wrong way, and like, why is the teacher's desk here? I don't know. We'll deal with it. So add an event. I'm going to call this one clicked button. Because remember, events are things that you did or things that happened. So I clicked the button, past tense. All right. When you have this event, now you should be able to add a transition called click button by right-clicking on your state and adding that click button transition. And I'm going to connect this thing to the open state. And then inside my closed state, I'm still on my first state. This drop-down box here for what event I'm going to send. I'm going to make sure I choose clicked button here. So let's just play here and make sure this is working, because this is like the most this is the easiest thing to not have work correctly. When you play and you click your button should go away and your state should change. All right, so make sure that's working. Cool, that worked. You can make your button smaller too, Diana. So if you have that working, cool. If you don't have it working, let me know. Anyone? If you have it working, great. The open state is going to do one thing. I just want to play an animation, all right? So go to the open state and add an action called play animation. You're going to get used to finding and discovering new actions that you can use. In this case, though, it's nice that we get this play animation action. So here are some new buttons that you haven't seen before in Playmaker. The animation name is looking for what animation you want to play, okay? There are lots of ways you can fill this in. You can type in an animation here. The better thing to do is to click this little box to the right of that field, which will give you a list of all the animations that are available. So it's not this button. It's the one that goes, it's a little up and down arrow. You should see opening and closing there. So you want to either type opening here or choose opening from this list here. It's just a nice way that it tries to help you make sure you type it in correctly. And that's it. So do that, press play, and click your button. You should see your chest opening. Cool. Everyone got a chest opening animation? No, Kai? Do you have a play animation action?
Yeah, I do.
Did you type opening here or choose opening?
Yeah.
Did you click the button?
Yeah.
Does the button go away?
Yes.
And it doesn't play the animation? Are you using the correct chest? All right, give me a second, Kai. It looks correct. Oh, I didn't tell you to do this, though. Yeah, just delete that transition. Okay. So here, go to your open state. Show me the thing over there. Why is that opening is correct? You disable the animation still. That should work now. Okay, everyone got an animation of it opening. Let's get it closing now. We're going to do the same thing but in reverse. Then we're going to take it a little bit further. So if you have this, you notice that it plays the animation when you click the button, right? So let's add another button that plays a closing animation, okay? So go here. When we enter this state, it goes open. Cool. Let's add a button to this state. So go ahead and add another action to the open state. We're going to add a GUI button. And let's call this one close chest. That's what we're going to name the text on the button. And I'm going to resize it as well. And I want this button to send me back to closed, okay? So I'm going to add a transition here. I'm not going to add a new event this time. I'm just going to reuse the event I used before. So I'm just going to go to the open state. I'm going to add a new transition called click the button. And I'm going to connect it back to closed. So it's the same transition I used before. This time, though, I'm adding it to the open state. And before you forget, remember to assign this drop-down box here that's blank right now on the GUI button to be click button here. And then test it. You should see open chest. When you click close chest, it should go back to the other state. And it hasn't played the animation yet because we're going to add that next. But you should be able to go between the two states. Did you remember to assign the button to the Oh, that's working. It's kind of working, because there's still some stuff missing.
Maybe if you click open and then automatically.
Yeah, we're going to change that. So in the closed state, it's not playing an animation yet, right? So it plays an animation when it opens. And then when we click the button, I want it to play the closing animation again. So let's add that. So to this closed state, so go to the very first state, this one here that we added. And in addition to the GUI button that we add, we're going to add another play animation action, which plays the closing animation. So this time I'm adding a play animation to the first state that I edited. And sorry if you can't see, I have this one selected here. I'm going to actually color it blue. So add another play animation here. And this time play the closing animation.
But it plays it when you start the level.
Yep, we're going to fix that right after I make sure everyone's got it playing the closing animation. So notice, yeah, if you did this right, it'll play the closing animation when it starts, but also every time you click the button, it'll switch between open and closing. Notice it does weird things though. If you click the button rapidly, it kind of like, we don't want that, right? We want it to like, we want it to finish playing the animation before it's allowing you to close it again. Everyone have this thing opening and closing when they click the button? Anyone not have it? Because we're about to make this thing a little bit more involved. So there's a couple of issues. One, the animation plays when the level starts. That's not cool. Two, you can click the button even though it's not done playing the animation. Okay? We're going to solve both of those the same way. The idea here is that we actually have more than just two states for this chest, right? The chest can be open, it can be closed, but it can also be in between those two. It can be opening or closing, right? So like the chest can either be open right now, it can be closed right now, or it could be going from open to close. It could be actually opening up the hinge, or it could be closing those, right? It actually has 4 states that this chest can be in. Okay, does that make sense? It's not quite like a light switch. There's actually 4 total things that it can do. We're only representing 2 of them, which is why it's acting all kind of weird. We need to represent all 4, which means we need to have 4 states in our state machine. Okay, so let's add those states. All right, I'm going to create a little bit of room in between these two because I'm going to basically add a state in between open and closed in both directions, okay? So let's start with going from closed to open, all right? Add a new state here. I'm going to color this one orange. And I'm just red, orange, yellow. And I'm going to call this one opening this time. This is going to be our third state that we add. You guys can feel free to skip ahead if you feel like you need to. So this third state that we added, I want this thing to be responsible for actually playing the animation. Right now, we play the animation when we are in this state, which is not correct. We actually only want to play the animation while we're opening. Okay? So we have this third state here, and in this state is where I want to play the animation. So here, in this third opening state, I'm going to add another action. I'm going to have it play animation. And I'm going to have it play the opening animation here. We're going to get rid of the other play animation call in just a bit, but for now, this third one, we're going to have it play opening. And I'm going to change this thing here. See how this clicked button transition is going down to open? I'm going to have it go here instead. All right? So clicked button is going to go to opening. Okay? And I want opening to go here. So I basically want, like, you click the button, it's playing the opening animation, and then it finishes and it goes here. All right? Right now I can't connect these two because I don't have a transition. Finish is a great transition to add. So go ahead and go to the add transition and add finished here. Because what finished means is as soon as it's done, as soon as this state is done, with everything it tried to do, it's going to try and mark this state as finished. In this case, it's going to be playing the animation. So I add this transition for finished on this opening state. I'm going to connect it here. And I'm going to select it in this drop-down box here. This finish event is the event that I want to fire when this animation is done. It's not strictly necessary in every action, but I like to be safe and just choose it anyway. So it's finished, and it's going to go down to here. Okay? This open state, I'm going to delete this play animation action. Okay? So right now, my states look like this. Closed has a button and a play animation. Opening has a play animation. And open has a GUI button. Okay? So here's the behavior that you should see. You click the button goes away while the animation is playing, and then the button shows up again when the animation is done. Okay? Let me show you what that looks like. So I'm going to play. Watch this button. So that's still happening. The animation is still playing when it starts, which we're going to fix next. I click this button. The button's going to go away. The animation is going to play, and then a new button's going to show up, right? So if I click this, animation plays, and a new button shows up. Okay? Now, why did that happen? So go look at the state machine. So I just want you to watch the, I don't actually want you to watch the chest at all, really. I just want you to watch this thing here. So see the green box around there? I'm going to click the button, goes to here, and it goes to here. Okay? So it's a three-state machine. Does that make sense, everyone? One more time. So it's in this state here, opening, while it's playing the animation. And this state doesn't have any buttons that it's showing, which is why the button goes away. As soon as I enter here, the button shows up again, because that's what we told it to do. All right? Let's add a fourth state, which is to fix the final part. We're going to add a fourth state. And as you can guess, this is going to be a closing state. And I'm going to change the transition to closing. Closing is going to play an animation. And when it's finished, I'm going to add a transition to go back to closed. And then closed is no longer going to play that animation. Okay? So each of our states in our state machine only does one thing. It either plays an animation or it shows a button. So your state machine should look exactly the same. You should have a closed, opening, open, and then closing. Okay? I colored my closing state as green. I don't know. It's right. Yeah. I don't know. Here's a trick too. If you guys are ever using Playmaker, you can hold down Control. You select a transition, hold down Control and hit left and right arrow. It'll change your little plugs to be on one side or another. It'll force it. If you care, you can also change these lines to be right angles instead of curves, but I'm not going to worry about it. Control and right arrow and left arrow. We'll force it to be on one side or another. Everyone got this? Everyone should see this now. It should be basically, it shouldn't play the animation at start. It should play the opening animation. And it should only let you click the button when it's done. Let's do a little bit more with this. Let's do something more fun. And I think we'll get into more, we'll make a prize that pops up. and some audio. I think that sounds good. Everyone have this working?
Yeah.
Anyone not have it working?
I have a very weird problem.
You have a very weird problem? Yeah. Did your chest explode? Because that would be a really weird problem. Is there feedback to it? Nice. So you need to get rid of that play animation action.
No, how do you?
Each state has one action. You, yeah, do that again.
I'm removing a state.
Okay, everyone else got it? Ramon, how you doing, dude?
What's the straight lines again?
How you doing?
I'd probably be dead.
Here, this is stop button. Each one of these states
If
should only
it's
have
going to
one
explode,
action.
probably because
Goes
driving
here
it.
first. So this one only needs the button.
Fucking psychos.
You don't need the play animation. This one only needs the play animation. This state only needs the button.
You poor, poor
This
baby.
state only needs play animation.
However will you buy a new wallet? No. You started it. Probably. My memory doesn't go back that far. But you were probably at first.
Button open. Let's do more. Let us, as a lab, can you guys hook up? Ooh, yeah. Can you guys hook up a sound to this chest? I showed you guys how to use BFXR last week, right? Can you hook up a sound so that when it opens, that it plays? And then I'll show you guys a little bit of Unity particle editing, because we're going to have it play a particle system too. When it's done. I have some sounds, I think.
Yeah, but it's bells.
Oh, I have a good sound for you guys if you want to use it.
You want to have more cowbells.
Oh, this might be too loud. I think this one's good too. Oh, that's a chest opening. I'm gonna use this one here. You guys want to use this one too?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'll put it in Zool on GA3331 with some other Link to the Past sounds that you guys can use. So hook up a sound to play when the chest opens. All right. Then we'll hook up a particle effect to play as like a prize.
Lucky players, you get a particle effect.
Yeah.
More cowbells.
And if you really want to go the distance, have it play a sound when it starts opening, when it's done opening, when it's closing. Hook up a sound to every case. It'll make it sound better. And you want to use the play sound action for this, obviously. If you don't like these sounds, go find whatever else you want. Whatever else you want.
No, just my translation just came out wrong.
Go do whatever else you want.
No, I was like, you don't like my shit, go fuck yourself.
Yeah. Like my shit? GTFO.
Well, that's how I translated it.
I wasn't thinking that. Just to be honest, I was not thinking that.
Right,
Maybe not everyone likes Zelda. Maybe you guys like Metroid or like. God, what other game has like chests that work like that?
So you add the sound to the opening?
Yes. Or really when it's open, I want you to play a sound.
Not while it's opening, after it's
Well, your choice. I mean, like in Zelda, when you open up a treasure chest, like there's this like fanfare, right? That like happens, and then when you finally figure out what item it is, that's when it plays, right? this one here. It takes that long. Like the chest opens and then all that stuff plays.
The first song is from the opening, and then
That is a victory sound for winning a fight in Final Fantasy. Right? Damn it! It's my OCD. That is not the right one. I'm gonna mix these two. All right, so if you haven't already, I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna do a little bit more with this because I wanted to actually time it to.
So if you wanted it to like make a right when it closed, you would add another state right after the closing state.
Right. In between closing and close.
Play initially, but after that.
Right. Exactly. Let's do this though. All right. I'm also so if you're not sure how to do it, you can just watch me because I'm going to do this right now, but I'm going to do it my way. Where is this thing? So I kind of want it so that when I open the chest, I hear the fanfare, and then a few seconds later, I play the actual item catch sound, and then I want to play an explosion of particles because I think that'd be cool. So let's just do the first part. When it opens, I want to play the sound, right? So I'm going to call play sound. And the sound I want to play, I'm going to import it here. So remember, you can just drag and drop assets. So I'm going to do this one and this one, maybe this one too. Import them all. And to be thorough, when the chest is opening, I'm also going to play this one here. This one. Right? That's the sound of a chest opening. Kind of closing too, I guess. I'm going to just play that one. So when it's opening, I'm going to play a sound. This one. And when it's open, I'm going to play this one. That's the sound I'm going to play. Over here. Let's just hear what that sounds like here. Right? And then it just stops, which is shitty about that. We're going to fix that too. What I want is, in my game, maybe I don't want to close the chest again. So maybe I'm just going to get rid of it. We already know how we can open and close the chest now. I don't think we need this closing state. I don't think we need a button to let me close the chest again. I just want it to, when it's finished, go ahead and play a different sound. So I'm going to add another new state. Finish open. And I don't need this clicked button transition anymore. I'm going to do finished here. Let's just see what happens when I do that. So I'm going to click the button. Goes here. Let's just have it wait. So here's something that you're going to use a lot too. Super common. You want it to stay inside of a state for some period of time, right? Like a few seconds. So here it's playing the sound, but it's not waiting to finish playing the sound before it goes. So instead, I'm going to figure out how long this sound is. This one looks like it's about 10 seconds long. Okay? So I'm going to add a new action called wait. As you can imagine, it delays a state from finishing for some period of time. Okay? I'm going to have it wait for 10 seconds. I think that's how long it is, right? It's pretty long. It's more like 7 seconds actually. I'm going to say, I'll just have it wait for 7 seconds. Okay? So now that I have this wait in there, watch how the state behaves. Look at the state machine here, that's green. Plays this. Goes here, right? 7 seconds might be a little short. Let's make it 8. And when it gets here, I'm going to have it play another sound. This time it's the item fanfare, this one here. Because that's what I actually want. It sounds a little off, but it's fine. Okay? Is that the sound that you chose, Kai? You can play it if you want. So here it is. Here's a sound. Oh yeah, you can, if you want to ever add finish, control clicking, I think I told you, will add states, right? So every time you hit this, if you control click on a state, it adds finish transitions like this. It's probably why you have so many, because you control clicked. You don't need that many. I'm going to undo.
Go to a different state instead of that?
Yeah, just right click on the state and say set as start state. Okay, so finish open. Let's do some particles. We're going to add a prize, right? Because I think I want something to show up. Normally I would be showing you guys how to do animations with coins, but we're going to do this to start. Okay, so particles in Unity. Everyone have like something that they want that plays a sound. It doesn't have to be like this, but it's something that plays a sound when the chest is open. Let's create a particle system. So if you want to make a particle system, it's just like making a cube or a capsule. If you go to the game object menu and do create other, particle system is the first one on that list. So go ahead and add one to your scene. By default, it creates kind of a fountain particle. This is the default particle effect just to prove that something is happening. And you get a new dialog box that shows up that's for controlling the particle. You can stop and click simulate to restart the particle system. And now on the right side, you have this particle editor. Okay. Before we get to actually editing the particle system, let's just hook it up so that our chest plays this particle system. Okay. When the chest is open, I want to make this particle system when it's actually done playing its sound and doing the fanfare. All right. Maybe the only thing I'll change here is the color. I can change the color. So if you click on Start Color over here, you can change it. Notice that it changes it real time. I'll change it to be green. So right now, this thing is going to be playing all the time. If you just have it in your level and you press play, the particle system's just on. I only want it to turn on when I've opened the chest, okay? There are a couple of ways to do this. I'm going to show you one easy way to start, and then I'll show you a better way right after, okay? So to start, the easy way to do it is let's just put this particle system kind of inside our chest. And here's a trick. You can try to like position it in there, But honestly, it's way, way easier if you just take this particle system, drag it on top of your chest, so it's a child of it, all right? So even if it's over here, you drag it so it's under your chest, and then go to the position and zero out all the position parts. So go here. Once you've made it a child, just put 0, 0, 0 on all of these things, okay? And then we're going to disable this particle system by default. So you've already probably done this either by accident or intentionally. This checkbox in the top left of an object will disable or enable an object. Let's just hide the particle system because we're going to enable it through Playmaker when you open the chest, okay? So make sure it's not running. And then go to your Playmaker state machine and go to the spot where you want it to play the particle system and add a new action called Activate Game Object, okay? This Activate Game Object lets you activate or deactivate objects just the same as if you clicked on the checkbox in the top right. This action basically is responsible for clicking on the checkbox in the top right, okay? So go to the action browser and search for Activate Game Object. It's not, you added the particle system as a component to the chest. That's not actually correct. Remove that particle system. Here. Sorry, I gotta move over there. I'm gonna show you the little gear. Click on that, remove it. This time I want you to go to the game object menu at the top and create other and do particle system. This is actually how you make the particle system, okay? All right, everyone have an action called Activate Game Object in your list, in your action. This thing is useful for hiding and unhiding anything in your game, okay? You want to hide or unhide pickups. You want to hide or unhide enemies. You can destroy them or you can hide them. In this case, we're just going to hide this thing, okay? But really, the particle system is already hidden, right? The particle system is here, and we've hidden this thing. Notice the little thing here is grayed out. So it's disabled. So go here, Activate Game Object, and this time, it's going to ask you for what game object you want to activate. So by default, it's going to be the owner of this script. What is the owner of this script? Yes, that is not the right object, okay? We want to change this object instead of using the owner to be specify game object, okay? So change that to be specify game object. And now it changes so it asks you for what game object you want. Here, you can click and drag the particle system on top of here, or click this little circle and select the particle system here. Okay? That makes sense? I'll do it again. So I have this Activate Game Object action. I'm going to add one to my state. Change this drop-down box to be specify game object. And I'm going to pick my particle system here, either by dragging and dropping it on top, or you can use this little circular picker to find the particle system here. Okay? If you play and you've done this right, you open the chest. Right? Particle system activated because I told it to. Does everyone get that? Did everyone get an activating particle system when they open the chest? Sorry, the better question is, anyone not get it? Sam, can you help us?
still my breathing. It's still making fun of me.
No, no. Yeah. It sounds like you actually purposely do it. I mean, like, you do
It's not like I'm making fun of my basic state of breathing.
Exactly.
It sounds like
Yeah.
you breathe like this.
And then put zeros in for all of these, the X, Y, and Z.
I know.
Not the rotation.
So what's the first one?
You can leave those. Make those all zero.
We're not using the blackboard, right?
I want you to also
No,
activate
these were
this.
just high, depending on your sound.
It should be after
This is gonna be different.
no, good. Really want to do that. So you can do it when you're on there. Think about trading it after this.
Yeah, that's, I don't know if that looks like a good trade. Like,
Actually,
it's,
sorry.
this is a big gun.
It's a big gun.
So that is cool that it
Yeah, but yours is probably bigger,
It
so
was
I
just
don't know if that's a
Mine's like that big, yeah.
good trade. I have no clue.
That's all good. You
I
guys got
think-
particle system? Let's do some. Let me give you guys a little bit of a crash course on particle editing too. You know, like talking about particles is whatever. Let's do something that's a little bit more interesting. I feel like Unity's actually got a pretty easy to use particle editor. It's fun to play with, and it can help make some of your games more clear as far as things that are happening. Like when you shoot people, you want like particle effects to spawn. When you have like pickup, you want them to be drawn to the player so that the player knows that they're pickup. This is not critical, but I do think that it's useful to know, and it's pretty easy to use. So let's just go to our particle system and activate it to start. It's green. And there are a ton of properties here, okay? You can watch tutorials on how to edit them, but some of the key ones that you can use, if I zoom out a little bit, see how my particles are actually going way up into the space there? So the first thing is that start lifetime is basically how long each little ball lasts. So the longer you have in here, the longer it'll go before it dies. So if I put like 50 here, look how high up it goes before it dies. Right? That's the lifetime here. I'm going to leave it as, I'm actually going to make it like 2 to make it short.
Kill them early.
Yeah. Is Kai good, Sam? Cool, thank you. So speed is, as you can guess, how fast each individual ball moves. Okay? You can make this thing, if you make this thing super fast, they obviously go shooting off. Before I go any further though, I want to point out that to the right of each of these fields is a little tiny downwards arrow, all right? This is one of the the key things to particle systems. You have a lot of options on what you want these numbers to be. The lifetime can be either a static number like 2 or 20, or, so this is the same in kind of any particle editor, or like the Unreal Engine stuff is the same way. Usually you don't want just a single number. Usually you want like a range, so you get a little bit of randomness, right? So this drop-down box will let you pick either a random between 2 constants, which is kind of what you want in a lot of cases, or you can have it be a curve, so it's not the same, but it's a little bit, instead of just a single value, it's actually a smooth value, or a random between those two. So let's just pick a random between 2 constants. And right now it's between 2 and 2, but if I pick like between 2 and 5, you can get a little bit of variance here, right? Some of these particles are lasting longer than others, right? I pick 2 and 5. You can do that for any of these fields. Like look at my speed. It's a static 2 right now, but I can change it to be a random between 2 constants and be like between 2 and 20, all right? So now it's between 2 and 20. I have some particles that are kind of just hanging out really slow, and some that are going really fast, all right? Give yourself some variance. This is also like matters for the size. So this size here, another thing too is you get, if you hover over the name, you get this little slider that lets you control. The size is another fun one that lets you control how big each ball is, right? You can pick a random between 2 constants here too. So I can do 1 and 100, which doesn't work. But really it's like between 1 and 5, maybe. So some of these green balls are small, some of them are big. This random between 2 constants is super, super useful for making interesting particles, okay? I can pick like 0.2 and like 2. Start rotation. This thing puts a spin on any of the particles that are emitted. You can't really see it since it's a circle, but if you had anything other than a circle, you would be able to see it. Start color. So this is cool. It's not, you can just make it something other than just flat color. You can have it be a range of colors. So maybe I want between white and orange, okay? Click the little downwards arrow and pick random between two colors or gradient. You can make it be a gradient, and you can click the little checkbox and you get a little Photoshop-esque color editor, which then lets you pick. I can pick white. Maybe this one I'm going to have it be orange. And what it'll do is it'll randomly pick between the two gradients, and you can add new keys, just like in Photoshop by clicking down there. And maybe I have it be like red, orange, white, you know, or maybe like yellowish, whatever you want. Okay. Gravity multiplier. By default, this being 0 means that gravity doesn't affect this particle system. Setting it to like 1 will mean they get affected by normal unity gravity. It's like normal Earth gravity, okay? Setting it to higher than 1 will mean that it falls faster than normal gravity. I can keep this thing at 1. Inherent velocity only matters if this particle system is attached to something that's moving, like a bullet or a player, okay? We're not going to worry about it here. Okay, let's do emission next, because this is the other key part. I want my chest to create an explosion, all right? Explosions are not fountains of particles. Explosions are instantaneous mass amount of particles, okay? This is also really common. Unreal 4 has the same concept of burst and rate, so keep this in mind. The rate right now is saying, hey, spawn 10 of these little balls per second. I can change this to be like 100, which makes it a fountain. But I don't really want 100 particles spawning per second. I want 3,000 particles to spawn all at the same time, okay? That's done by specifying a burst. So see how there's a burst? You can click the little plus sign next to it. You specify what time you want the burst to happen and how many particles you want to spawn. I'm going to spawn maybe 1,000. I think that seems like a really good amount. Maybe 1,000 is too high. Okay, 1,000 is a little bit crazy. Maybe like 300. Okay. So that's burst. Burst means when do you want this thing to spawn this many particles, okay? That makes sense. Shape. Shape is basically, do you want this thing to spawn in a cone, a sphere, a cube, or a mesh shape? I think for an explosion, a sphere sounds pretty good. You pick how you can see the actual sphere radius. Make this thing like be like 5. These are kind of self-explanatory. I actually want this thing to be really tiny to start. Cool. Other things, so this is where I'm going to stop. I'm going to show you this one more thing, which is color over life. And then you guys can do some more stuff on your own. I'll change this thing to be red to start. Color over lifetime. If I want each individual ball to change color as it's spawned, as it's living, this is what you want to check. So these are disabled by default. They don't have a checkbox, but you enable color over lifetime, and you get a little gradient editor. And by default, I want this thing to be, let's just say I want it to be red to start and end off at being blue. And then I also want to fade out. So you can pick on the top little marker here, and that controls the alpha. So you can set the alpha to be 0. And this is key if you want particles to fade out over time. Okay? So gradually cause the particle to fade out. Okay? And that's it. That is the crash course on Unity particle systems. Once you have something that looks good or you like, you can always change the texture, by the way. The texture is on the bottom on the renderer settings. But now when I open my chest, it'll spawn. we're not going to get to that. We just did that. All right.
Oh my gosh. Looks like you're gonna kill the player.
Okay, I think we got time for one more thing. Yeah, we're not going to get to Health Manager.
Can we do the low level?
That's a good point. Yeah, that's really easy to do. Let's just make it set up so I'm going to show you how to set up just a restart level with this. We're going to make an object. Let's make it so when the player falls off the level that he hits a volume and that restarts it, okay? Seems like a good thing to do, right? If you have a player that you already can use, that's perfect. I have this ball that's in my level that I'm going to use. Make sure I have this thing correct. Cool. I'm going to put my camera on this thing. So let me show you guys how to set it up so that if your player falls out of the level, that you can restart your level. I'm going to make my level a little smaller. It's a little bit out of control right now. Oh yeah, you can't really attach the camera to the. I'll show you how to do that next. So remind me that I'm going to show you how to attach the camera to a ball that's moving. Okay, so here's the ball, and I want to set it up so that if the ball rolls out of the level, boop, that it's going to restart my level, right? So the first thing I want to do is let me just see if I can restart the level when I press a key. I think that seems like a good thing to do, because I can set up a trigger to do that next, but I just want to make sure that I can do this behavior. So let's make a new object, and you guys don't have to follow along with this. I'm just going to show you for sake of time. So I'm going to make an object that's going to be called my game manager. And this is just going to be responsible for restarting the level when I do something. All right, so I'm going to add a component. I'm going to add an FSM. Go here. And let's set it up so that waiting to restart. When I get a key, and again, you guys don't have to follow along, you can just pay attention. I'm going to set it up so if I hit, let's say escape. I think that seems good. I want to restart the level. So I'm going to say pressed escape as the event. Add a new state here. Add a transition here. Like that. Choose the event here. And this is going to be the restart level. And I did not save this scene yet, so let's just make sure I save the level. Scenes. Level 1, we're going to call it. If you just look for load level as an action, it asks you for a level name. So I'm going to type in level 1, and that's it. So I'm going to play, make sure I can move. I'm going to hit escape, and what happened? Everything got reset. I fell off, I hit escape. It actually loaded the level all over again. That's all you need. So what you do, to reiterate, is you go here, you only need one load level action and the name of the level you want to load. Okay? This will reset everything back to the way it was when the level started.
So it's
a dot unity what? Sorry. This thing here? This is just the name of the dot unity file. Yeah, right. Yeah. It's the name of the thing in the top left here where it says level 1. And this is also the way that you change levels. Like, let's just make another one here. I'm going to make a new scene, save scene. I'm going to make a new one. I'm just going to call this one level 2. So I'm going to save it as level 2. It has nothing in it, okay? Nothing. There's nothing in here. So let me open up the level 1 again. So this time, my game manager, when I hit escape, I'm going to load level 2 instead. So I'm not sure that this actually works in the editor, because I want to say it doesn't actually know to load level 2. Yeah. It's actually giving an error because it doesn't know how to handle, hasn't been added to the build settings. So let's do this. So whenever you have multiple levels, we haven't really gotten to this, but this is super easy. Unity by default only builds one level, so you have to tell it that you want to build more than one. So just like how you guys built your executables today to hand in under File, Build Settings, here, by default, it has nothing but the current one. So what you want to do is you want to add more than that. I want to open up level 1, and I'm going to open up level 2. Yeah, save. Add level 2 there. Okay.
We just could call the element number, right?
Yeah, you can just
Name.
even if you have the element number, it'll still give you the same error. So you still need to add it here.
Right, right.
And I'm pretty sure I'm still not convinced that this thing is going to know. So I hit escape. Yeah, so it actually loaded level 2 here. And when I stop playing, it'll load back to level 1. Hit escape. It's actually loaded level 2 here on the bottom left. Okay. So if you ever had multiple levels in your game and you wanted to do transitions between them, all you have to set up is a load level action. Let's set this up on a trigger now. So when the player falls through the world, that it will cause the level to restart. Okay. If you guys remember how triggers are set up, they're basically cubes. Here's my cube. And I want this cube to kind of be about the size of the plane. So there's my cube. I'm going to scale it to be this big, like that. And I'm going to scale it to be
Just nailed it.
this big over here. Because this is basically going to be responsible for catching the player if they fall. Let's put a material on here because it's really hard to tell otherwise. That's my trigger on the bottom. And then this is my platform on the top, the red one, right? This is my trigger. Let's scale it up to and put it below. And I don't actually need the mesh to render again. This is how big the trigger volume has to be. Maybe like that. Just enough so I can't fall out of it. That's probably good, right? And I'm gonna hide the mesh because I only want the green part. I only want that part here, which is going to be my trigger. Click this to be a trigger. And I'm going to rename this thing to be GO kill volume. And here, I'm going to add a playmaker FSM. This is going to be waiting for player. And triggers. Yeah. It's going to be a trigger event because I'm waiting for the player to touch this trigger. And when trigger enters, I want to add a transition to say restart level to go to this state. So I'm going to add a transition here, which means I need to add a custom event. Say player fell to their doom. Okay? So that's the transition I want. Goes to restart level. And remember to fill this in here. And restart level is just going to do load level. And level 1. Okay. Now if I play, and I watch this thing and I fall off, boom. See my ball there? Restarted. And remember, you can hide the state labels. Go to Preferences and uncheck this one here. This will hide the little text that shows up over everything. And as soon as you fall off, the thing restarts. Okay? I'm recording this too, so you can watch it later. All right, we got about half an hour. What can we do? We have so many things that we can do. We did that. Cool.
Do a combo system.
Combo system? Combat system? Let's see. I do want to show you guys how to do health, but I think I'm going to need more than like half an hour to show you guys how to do health. The homework is actually involving health and physics, which we didn't get to do health, but let's do some physics stuff. I think that seems good. All right? Yeah, we got time to do physics. All right. Let's do physics, and let's do a physics behavior that basically lets us control objects in the level. Because we've already done adding force to the sphere. Yes. Okay. Let's do this. We're going to make it in this level. And I'm going to just disable my player and the chest for now. I just need this thing here. I want you guys to make a game today or this week based around physics. So I showed you guys how to add force to a single sphere, right? Now, the next thing I'm going to show you how to do is add force to arbitrary objects in the level. And I'm going to add a cube. And what I want to do is kind of make it a popcorn cube. Like, I'm going to make this thing like pop up like it's been put into a toaster oven, right? So let me adjust my camera here. So I kind of want you guys to follow along. So it's going to start off really simple. And then we're going to do some interactions with mouse. So here's my cube, and then we're going to make a prefab out of it too, because we haven't done much with that, but it'll be good. So GO underscore physics cube. That's what I'm going to name this guy. All right. So create a cube in your level, and call it GO underscore physics cube. Let me just double check that these things. Sorry. Okay. So here's my cube. I'm going to apply a material to it, like maybe a blue one. If you have your Playmaker assets, you'll have a materials folder, just to distinguish this thing from like the background. Here's my cube. And let's set it up so that we will press the left mouse button. And no matter where I'm clicking, let's have the cube pop up in the air and spin around. All right? More basic Playmaker actions. So to this cube, I am going to add an FSM. And when I click the mouse button, I want this thing to pop up in the air. All right? So add an FSM to your cube, and the first state is going to be waiting for a click. Okay? And then you're in a second state which says pop up. Waiting for click is going to have a single action which is going to use a get mouse button down. This is basically looking for the player to press the left mouse button. All right? When they press the left mouse button, I want it to transition from here to here. So I want to add a transition by adding an event called, we're going to call this event clicked, maybe just clicked. I think that sounds good. Okay, so your state should have one action called get mouse button down here. And then once you've added this, go to your Events tab and add a new event. I called mine clicked. And I want you to set up a transition to go from here, the waiting for click, which is the red state, to pop up, which is the blue state here. Like that. Okay. Don't forget to assign the send event here to be clicked, because people always forget. Again, once you have this set up, just play. And now when you click in the level, it should change from this state to this state here. pop-up. So pop-up is going to do two things. It's going to put this thing up in the air, and I'm going to have it spin in the air as well. All right? So go to the action browser in your pop-up state and add an add force action. You've used this to move the ball around, remember? Like this is also how you made the ball jump, okay? So add force, click the little red box to make sure you add the rigid body component, and then click on this little box here to hide the Y variable selector, and instead let's type in 150 here as the force. If you didn't get the red box, then you might already have a rigid body component. Can you double check on the right side here? If you scroll down that you see a rigid body component in your inspector view? If you don't see that, you may have to just add it. So go, if you don't see this thing right here, let's say it looks like this where you don't see it here, and you don't see this box. Go down here to add component, and go to physics, and add the very first thing, which is rigid body. Okay, that's it. So now play. And make sure your thing pops up in the air. And I only want it to pop up once. Don't have it pop up multiple times. We're just going to have it pop up once. Maybe 150 is too low. Let's just do 300. And we're going to have it also spin in the air too. Okay? So add force is one thing. It should look something like this when you click on it. Boop. You don't actually have to click on the cube. We're going to do that next. So maybe. So action browser, let's make it rotate. There's an action called iTween rotate add, which I'll get into more later as far as like what things you can do. But for now, I just kind of want you to add this action and not worry too much about the specifics of what it does. And there's one red drop-down box that shows up when you add an iTween rotate add. This is responsible for rotating something over time. So if you just search for iTween, one word. Okay. When you add this iTween rotate add, iTween rotate. If you type word iTween rotate add, all 3 different words, you'll see one result. So add that. You'll see a red drop-down box here that I want you to fill in. So in this red drop-down box, to the right of it, click that button, which will expose an X, Y, and Z. So on X, I want you to type in like 90 here. This is probably a good number. And then play. Click on the, if you have X, Y, Z. So on my iTween rotate add, I have 90 in X. So let me show you. This is what it looks like. It looked like this before with a vector that was red. I click this button on the right, and I put in like, I can put like 87. I don't know. It doesn't really matter what it is. That'll cause it to spin. You can put in X, and I think Z will also be good here. Maybe a Z of like 45.
We don't only do it once, though.
Yeah, it's fine. I only want it to happen once for now. Okay. So once you have it, when you click, it should pop up in the air and spin, right?
Yes.
I want to make sure Ramona's got it too. Ramona, is it popping up in the air?
No.
Where is your cube? Did you add force? It looks like you didn't add a force. Go to your pop-up. But did you actually specify a Y?
No.
Yeah. So. Yeah. We're going to make a prefab out of this thing and put like 30 of them in our level. Okay? Cool. You don't have to click your button, by the way. You can just click anywhere. So let's make a prefab now. So go into your hierarchy, this thing here, the list of all your objects. Take your physics cube. I want you to click and drag it into your project panel. All right? So take your physics cube and click and drag it into your project panel. Your object will turn blue. And you'll have a new object in your project called it's a GO physics cube. Now I want you to take the object from here. I want you to click and drag a bunch of them into your level. Put them wherever. And then press play and click. You should notice that they all have the same behavior when you click. They all should jump up and rotate, right? Kind of like a pop band, like a K-pop band or something. Everyone got prefabs? All right. Where's your project panel? The bottom. It's on the bottom. The bottom window, the big one? Yeah, that's a project panel. The one with all the folders? That whole thing is the project panel. Yeah, you should choose a 2x3 layout just to keep it. In the top right, the drop-down box, it'll be a lot easier if you choose a 2x3. Now you have your game view and your scene view, and then your project panel. All right. Now, if you guys, who hasn't set up a prefab yet? Okay. Let's set it up to be, if you have it set up as a prefab, now when you click, they all should jump. Now, clicking anywhere is one thing. But what I really want is when I mouse over these things that they actually, they jump when I mouse over the things, right? Because right now I can click anywhere. Like I don't even have to be near the cubes. I just like click, and then they go. But I want each cube to pop when I'm mousing over it, all right? So this time, edit. Now that these are prefabs, I can edit any of them. And the changes that I make to one will affect all of them at the same time, all right? So go back and edit one of your Playmaker FSMs for this thing. If you have the latest version of Playmaker, it's going to ask you whether you want to edit the prefab or the instance. If you haven't purchased Playmaker or you don't have a version, you won't see this dialog. If you do see this dialog, edit the prefab. All right, and click here. We are not going to use get mouse button down. I want you to search for a mouse pick event. We're going to add a mouse pick event and delete the get mouse button down, all right? Mouse pick event is a way for your mouse cursor to interact with objects in the level, okay? And what we want is when the person presses down on the mouse, that it causes us to pop up. So this mouse down event, we're going to change this drop-down box to be clicked, okay? So mouse down will be clicked. And press play. And now, on each individual cube, when you click on the cube, they will pop up, okay? That's all you have to do. Go here, change this to be clicked, and get rid of your old get mouse button down, all right? This is also how you can make a MOBA-ish kind of game. And then let's fix it so that they go up every time you click on it. Ramon, you got this? Does it work for you when you click on the object? And you have to be clicking on it, right? Yeah. Make sure you got rid of your get mouse button down. You should only have one action in your first red state. Click on your red state, Ramon. Yeah. Oh, get rid of get mouse button down. And then try it again, yeah. Try to click on that thing on the cube now. What's the matter with this? Yeah, a mouse down event, that drop-down box on mouse down, that basically is the event you want to fire when you click on it, okay? All right, Ramon, did it work for you where you have to click on the cube now, right? Okay, cool. All right, let's change it now so that you can click on it multiple times, all right? I'm going to change pop-up to have a finished transition here and just go back to waiting for click, and that's it. And that'll make it so that you can click on the cubes multiple times. And every time you click on it, they'll go up in the air. All right? It won't let you do it until it finishes between rotate. All right, so what happens? Show me your state. Mouse down, clicked. Not every frame. Try that.
It's got to be done with that frame.
Oh, you didn't do that? Then yeah, you want that every frame. Sorry. Yeah, every frame and then apply this to all your prefabs. Yeah. Cool. If you want it to happen instantaneously where you don't want it to have to wait for the rotate, just remove your rotation. But you should have something like this where you can click on the things. Okay? Does everyone have this? Where you can click on it? Because this is going to be the homework.
Only one time. It's not a homework. Right?
Yeah, you got to add the finish transition to that. I'm going to give you guys 2 weeks for this homework. This is going to be a first 2-week project, okay? Which means next week you do have to come with something to class. It's just, I'm going to give you guys some more time so that we can go over health next week. Think about the various physics games you can make, right? Maybe get the physics thing into, remember, you know how triggers work now, right? Triggers can detect whether something enters it, which means you can detect whether cubes enter it too. You can make like physics-based basketball games, physics-based catapult games. You can have the player be physics-driven as well. Let's go over the homework.
Yay. This is like dentist stuff right here.
Dentist?
Yeah, where you show up at 1 o'clock because your appointment's at 1:30, but then he doesn't call you until 3 o'clock. So you just sit there.
Trying to get those things, try to keep them in the air, right? That's a game. Yeah. And put up on Zool.
He shows you a button on the way for him, but
I'm just gonna do like another scripting version of everything.
Sure. That sounds great. So we didn't go over health managers this week because we didn't get to it. We'll get to that next week. So ignore the part where it says health for now. But the goal is that we're going to design a prototype for any kind of game involving physics or health. And pretty much it has to be about physics in this week. I'll give you guys 2 weeks to do this. You can have a puzzle game that involves physics objects, moving them around. Maybe the player is a physics ball that interacts with other physics objects. The player, if they're a ball, by the way, will push other physics objects out of the way automatically. So you can have something interesting there. The goal is I want you to come to class next week with some very, very, very simple version of your idea of a physics-based game. It can be anything simple, like have a physics ball get to the end of a level. Or maybe it's like you have a cube and you want to try to get the cube into the goal by hitting it with your ball. Whatever idea you can think of that involves kind of the stuff that we learned. It doesn't have to be crazy complicated. Just try to do something that involves physics. It doesn't have to do a lot of scripting and Playmaker either. It can just be more general physics-based. But try to come with some interesting ideas, and it's kind of up to you. But physics should be the key. You can try to do an Angry Birds style thing. And then next week we'll go over health to help you guys do more stuff with more gameplay elements. Okay? That's it. So the homework is come to class next week with an executable, a project ready that has something physics-based in it. All right? We're already in week 5. We only have like 6 more weeks of class. Isn't that crazy? Okay. Questions at all?
I was hoping that this ride never ends.
The ride never ends. You can make a physics-based. Oh, that's a cool idea. Roller coaster. Like you have a ball, you have to try to get down a ramp and launch it, to hit a target. It's cool. See you next week. Thanks.